Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to all tech enthusiasts watching us today. Welcome you all to Solution Challenge Week of Prep. I am Ishita, a team member, GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith, and I'd be your host for this session. I appreciate our lovely audience for eagerly awaiting this session and joining us today. We are extremely excited to see you all. If this is your very first time attending a GDSC event, let me give you a quick insight through our club. GDSC is abbreviated as Google Developer Student Clubs, which are college communities run by students who encourage peers for building a collaborative environment that has the potential to generate solutions to real world problems, and GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith is one among them. Join our community platform today if you haven't already. Also, we are delighted to announce that our recruitment forms are open, so those who wish to join GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith as a team member, our recruitment drive is live and the application form for the same is accessible on our Linktree. The team will be dropping the link into the same in the chat box. We at GDSC keenly await your application form and we can't wait to have you on board. As you all are aware, the Google Solution Challenge 2022 has officially begun. We at GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith are here with Solution Challenge, Week of Prep, where all our invited experts would be sharing their valuable knowledge of various technologies and areas for you to use in your Solution Challenge projects. So without further ado, let's begin with the third day of the Solution Challenge Week of Prep, Product Design. The agenda for the day is as follows. How to step in product design as a beginner, how engineering is related to product design, is learning product analytics important for a product designer, what exactly a product designer does, and many more. With that being said, we take immense pride in introducing our guest speaker for today's session, Mr. Abhay Chopra sir, who is one of the founding members of the product and design team at GrowthSchool. He has been in the design industry for the last 8 years, having knowledge about motion design, graphic design, user interface design, and user experience design. He has given design talks at college communities like TEDx, IGTTW, VIT Valor, and many more. We welcome you, sir. Without further ado, let's dive right into the insights of product design with Mr. Abhay Chopra, sir. Over to you, sir.
Hi guys, hi. Uh, Hi. How are you guys? So uh, they have introduced me, so thank you all for having me here. I'm trying to have this session as casually as possible because as we have a casual environment, the learning is more greater and better. Let me first share my screen and okay, yes, now I can. Perfect. Okay. So let me start with a little bit brief about me and my story about how I got into design and stuff. So product design is something that has been came up recently, but I have been into design for a very long time. Uh, it started as a hobby to learn softwares like Adobe After Effects, Premiere Pro, Photoshop, and etc. Then doing some gigs for some friends, some seniors, then slowly turning into a passion that I pursue right now. Uh, Product design, it's a term that is very heavy. It's a term that has been here for a very long time. People know it in a different sense, but it's not that like glorious or like it's glorious, but it's not that difficult or it's not that scary as it sounds. But let me go into this and try to tell you exactly going first with about what exactly is product design, and then we slowly get into what a product designer does, how just to let you know, I'm an engineer. Like how engineering helps you being a product designer, how that thinking process helps you being the product designer, and how can you hone your skills in product design. So as they've already introduced me, let's go into what is a product design. So see, to understand product design, you guys need to know more about UI design and UX design. In terms of UI, so see, in the basic layman terms, I would say you see a app, and the app, how does that app looks is basically the work of a UI designer. They design the app, the elements, the colors, the font that they have used, the size of the font, the spacing between the font, and everything is dependent on a UI designer how they do it. A UX designer is someone who is basically going to decide what has to be where. Let's just say they decide that this color is not going to go with the app that you are going to design. For example, this is very famous example. You guys might have seen that ambulance or anything that is related to danger. Let's just say a stop sign. You might be seeing that it is in red color. Why? Because red depicting a danger, right? So it goes beyond that, thinking that a UX designer decides which color to be used, which elements where to be placed, and everything around that. Now, what a product designer does? Product designer does both of these jobs and managing the whole project in some manner. There is a project manager, there is a product manager, which some might possess this designing skill, some might not. It depends on company to company, startup to startup. But what I will say about product designer is they basically try to do UI, UX, in some type of cases they do coding as well. But nowadays it's not a trend that a product designer does coding. But they also manage the team. They manage the whole project about how does it goes by, which feature where to be aligned, the project is in the deadline, and all around that. So let's deep dive into what exactly are the responsibilities of a product designer. So product designer basically works with across departments, with different partners. Basically, they kind of try to build relationship with other peers across discipline. Like they have to sit with the different engineering team to understand that this feature can be built, this cannot be built, and if, however, you have prototyped that particular feature in your designing software, which we will come to as well, which designing software to use, that how that particular feature should be there. If there's an animation, how does that should be implemented? If the engineering has not done it right, how they should be able to fix that. You don't need to go into the coding feature, but you need to tell them that this has to go from bottom to top, not from left to right or something around that, right? And in this process, you guys basically learn about how different domains basically work together towards building a product, right? Uh, Now, the second thing is basically defining problems. So, when we try to design a software or a product, we we tend to kind of mix up different things, which is not right, because we were in the first place we were trying to solve a single problem. That is something that we need to focus on. A product designer is someone who focuses on that this particular problem is being solved and how it's being solved, and all the design, UI, UX, research, anything that happens has to focus on solving that particular problem. By one more thing that I want to add here is, yes, product designer does solve a problem. The whole UI does solve a problem, but product designer also has to look at the perspective that the whole thing has to be more cost effective, whole thing has to be more business oriented. This is something that is very important, which we really not focus on. That is something that we have to focus on, that everything that we do has to be business oriented, because as a UX designer, as a UI designer, you might be building something that is user friendly, not business friendly, and product designer majorly focuses on that. And as I said, what's your goal towards designing this particular product? What's the context of designing this particular product, and more around that? Then, basically, when you design a product, there are a lot of use cases that happens. What are use cases? Use cases are basically what a particular person. Example, let me give it. What a particular person can take different routes towards a single solution, and these routes are different use cases, and how you basically explore those different solutions, and which one do you think is the best for the company as well as the best for the user, and which is that middle ground where we can kind of satisfy ourselves that yes, this is something that the user will be happy with, and this is something that the business is also happy with. So this that is something that a product designer looks forward, that different ways of solving a problem, identify the pros and cons, questioning that is there an implication that may arise while designing that particular solution in the product. If there will be, uh, how we can solve that. These things come around different domains, and this is what I told in the starting, that they have to kind of collaborate with a lot of different partners, because this, when a problem arises, they basically discuss with different. When you get input from them, you get input from them, and then you basically figure out the pros and cons of every solution that you get, and you finalize one, which then slowly gets towards the building stage. Now, one very, very important thing that a product designer has to do is a market research. What is market research? Basically, they have to understand what the competitors are doing. For example, you are trying to build a clone for Canva, right? Then you need to figure out what does Canva does, right? That they are at the best place, they're at the top of the industry, right? How does their product look like? If there are some special features, you need to interview people who are using Canva. You need to ask them different questions, open-ended questions, to understand how their Canva usage is. Is this casual? Is it more professional? Do they use it for some freelancing work? Do they use it just for some personal work? They need to understand these particular things. This is just a single question, but there might be 1,000 plus question. How do you use it as a, like I'm using it right now, as a view to present your presentations, or how do you use it, right? Then basically, then you figure out what are the gaps that are in the industry that are not filled, and that your company can work on and fill that gaps, right? Because you can't make a similar product as Canva. You need to be unique. You need to identify what are the pain points the user is facing who is using some of their competitors' product, and then you need to identify those, kind of fix those, and implement those. Now, what is user research that I talked about? You need to talk to a user. How does a user research happens? Example, you are trying to build a Canva clone. You build that Canva clone in a design software, again, as I said, which we're going to talk about in a bit. What are design software? Which design software basically you are using? And then you basically build a prototype of it. You go to a cafe with another user, you give them some tasks, they perform some tasks, you understand how they did those tasks, where they faced some issues, and then you got some feedback from it, right? Feedback from it, right? For example, you made a Canva, right? And they cannot understand how to present a screen. Then you have to focus on where the present button has to be morely focused on. For example, if you see in this screen, I hope yes you can. If you see in this screen, the Canva has, you see, every color of the button is like low opacity. I'm not like, it's not prominent to see that, but present button is in different color. Is it's highlighting so much that I can see, yes, this is where I can present things, right? Because this is the major CTA that they're trying to present, that you can present your screen, present your PPT presentation that you have made, right? So these particular small things are that comes up in a user research. You kind of use those things to focus on what exactly the user needs and work on that. One thing that I want to tell you before going forward is that why we do designing before any development. Why did designing become popular in recent years? Is because designing is cheaper. Like you can build prototypes much easily and much faster as compared to a development process. And once you do that, doing testing and understanding that the product that you're trying to make will be the best product that is in the market is very important before spending a ton of money to develop that project in a proper coding and stuff, right? Because that costs a company a lot of things. Now, the next thing that a product designer does is, yes, as I said, high quality UI and UX. In the starting itself, I told you that UI and UX both are the same, both are the jobs that a product designer has to do, right? They have to create some great, elegant user interfaces so that it is usable for a user. They have to create a great user experience that the user retention is higher. User can use the product at a greater rate and around that. Now, as I said, testing is way too important. Testing your product, once you have, let's just say, make the product, right? And testing the product with the user is so damn important, because if you don't test, you are not validating your solution. What does that mean? For example, I made that, I think that this particular present button should not be here. It should be in the middle of the screen, right? Or it should be on the left on the screen. So how do we validate that? We test that with the user. We test that with the user by understanding by showing them different prototypes, by telling them that this is where, and do this task, like present your screen, and which button is more prominently seen, the amount of time the user takes to do that task, and more around that. This is very, very important in a testing, that you need to understand or validate your whole solution. Now, the one and the most important thing that I am kind of figuring out, not figuring out, I will say I'm kind of practically implementing it recently, is because at Growth School, we are a very young startup. We are building things up, and design system is way too important to build things up. Why? For example, let's assume I build a product right now, and I didn't do it with the design system. Now, after 3 4 months, I understand by testing that I need to change the product. Now I need to make the whole product from the scratch. But by having design system, it will help me understand the company's language. It will help me understand that how the product was made, and I can bring those changes very faster. So having a design system, having knowledge about the design system, the fundamentals of design system, is very important as a product designer, because that's how you overlook the whole project, overlook the whole product that you're trying to make in the whole scenario. Now, before going to the methods that a product designer uses, I want to tell you about the design software that I've been talking about in the whole series. So there are a ton of design software that people uses nowadays. Design softwares includes, right, in previous generation, people used to use just Photoshop because there were no better software. But nowadays, there are ton of better softwares in the market which you guys can use, which I'm gonna talk about. Is that there's one, and the most famous one is called Figma. Then second is Sketch, Adobe XD. InDesign is even kind of getting back in the industry, but Figma is the most famous and it's free. Let me tell you, I just made a new account over in Figma. You can see here, I can basically choose a plan for your team. Obviously, I'm going to work with three. Let's just say I want to design with Figma, and I want to have a blank canvas. When I click this, I basically get a blank canvas to design things. Obviously, I'm not going to go much deeper into Figma, because if you go to YouTube and you search Figma tutorials, you will find tons and tons of tutorials of Figma out here, and you will be easily see you can easily see any of these tutorials, and you will be able to access, like, it's a 1 hour course, it's a 3 hour course. You can easily see one of these videos, and it's all good. You will be good to go. But I just want to tell you the prototyping thing that I was talking about. You see, again, just making some rectangles and stuff, uh, don't kind of follow these steps. You Once you get that video done, you will be able to understand how this works. So let's assume this is it. Now these let's assume this is a button. This is register now. Okay, and I'm going to make it a group. Again, some people might not be understanding. That's all okay, because we are going to test this out in a bit. Okay, just give me a second, guys. Once, so let's assume when I hover this button, hover means when I click, bring my arrow over this button, the color changes to this, and when I click this button, the color changes to this. How do I prototype it? See, I say that I want an interaction here. First, I want to change it to a frame. I want to change this as a frame. So basically, I will say to Figma, when I hover over this, I want to change into this. And let's just say I want to add a dissolve of 150 millisecond. And then I say when I click this button, it should do this. Okay. And now let's see the prototype. If I click that button and it goes to prototype, now see. If that opens up, now what should happen? What I have given the command to Figma is see. Is that okay? When I hover this, this happens. When I click this changes. You see, when I hover this, it changes to another frame. When I click this, it changes. So this is a very basic example of prototyping. How does this happen? But you can do thousands of prototyping in this. You can make a whole beautiful app that you kind of see. You can make a Uber here by just designing and see. It's just so easy. That's why product design is so important nowadays. You need to figure out things before you need to figure out things before getting into development, because development is costlier, right? Now let's just really get back, because I want to take a Q&A at the end for a good amount of time, because questions are the best way to kind of engage with the audience and ask the questions which they really want to ask. Right. Then what are the methods? Right. The methods, basically a lot of methods that happen in the product design space, and these are not, I would say, if I wrote this on a stone, it's not like it's written on a stone. You can change it wherever, whenever, and wherever you want. You can mix that up. You can not do any of these steps. You can just lay back and just do random shit and just do the product. But it depends on the person to person and how your designing process is, right? But I'm just giving a brief scenario for what are the basically methods which follow the whole process, right? One of the basic methods is brainstorming. Whenever you first get a problem, you try to find out solution. How do you find out solution? You write them down. You ask from people. You ask from the stakeholders about different ideas. You then figure out the pros and cons. You figure out this is the right one, this is not the right one. You ask for the constructive feedback. You get back to them after improving on the feedback. How do you do that? I am a person who likes to write things up, so I usually do it pen on paper or either on my iPad with the Apple Pencil, or you can use Miro, Google Sheets, wherever you want, wherever you are comfortable. Brainstorming has to be done, right? Because before doing the design, you have to brainstorm things up. Second, this is a customer journey map. There are a lot of, I don't know if I can show you. I think I can, or I should be able to. Customer journey map. Okay. So see, this is kind of a customer journey map that happens, right? You're able to see how the customer performs a particular task in the whole product. Let's just say a product is made for a customer to design a presentation. Then now, whenever you design a product, you need to give that person this task. And how you need to identify, before even testing it out, you need to identify how that process will go. And for that process, for each step, how many screens would you need? For each step, how many cases can it be? Which comes into user flow, which we'll talk about in a bit. But these things are very important before even getting into the product. Then you know that which steps you want to start with and which steps you want to end with when you're trying to design a product, right? Uh, Again, this can be done on Figma. As I said, you can just design the whole process and then you kind of design that. Now, user interviews. Then once you do that, you need to do user interviews to understand that what you are trying to solve, what you're trying to design, is it right? Is it wrong? Like, how is it going, right? For example, let's assume you are trying to design, again, with the same example, you're trying to design something that a user can use to create presentations and present it, right? They need to ask some people open-ended question, like first you can ask them about competitors, what they use, why do they use it, uh, and what really happens, and more stuff around that, so that you get to understand the user's feeling, motivation, pain points to develop the right concept of the product, right? Then, as I talked about user flow, once you make the customer mapping, each process, each step might contain thousands of use cases. Then you need to figure those out. You need to write those up, that what are the possible paths a user can go on that particular screen. For example, here I can click on file. I want to resize. I want to change the title. I want to share it to somebody else. I want to see the analytics. I want to download it. I want to present it. I want to duplicate it. It can be thousands of variations that you have to think of. I can click this. I can click this. Again, as I said, there can be thousands of variations that you need to figure out and design the product, which is very important, because if you leave any of those use cases out, this will hurt a lot as an engineer, because as an engineer they have to figure out all the use cases and they have to finalize that up when they're building. And if you go to testing, a lot of times this happens, a lot of product owner goes to testing and they kind of miss some single use case which kind of messes up the whole flow, which you do not have to do. You need to figure out, you need to possibly write down all the user flows and fix that up. The next thing is wireframing. I said wireframing is very important for a product designer to do. They need to figure out how the product structure should look like. Why I said structure is because when you are doing a product design, when you're doing the UI, you're basically building the fleshing out the product properly. But when you're wireframing, you're just putting all the elements at a certain place where you feel this is fit. Then you test it out. Then you figure out no, this is not right. Then you change it. Then you fix it out. Then you change it. Then you fix it. It's an iterative process. You have to do it a lot of times. And when you do it, then the next step goes to UI, basically designing the UI of that, basically visualizing it in a better manner. Kind of, let's just say black and white, you put like this has to be there. But that then it needs to be colorized, it needs to be presented good, it needs to be visually appealing to the users, right? Then once you have that app, then you prototype it. Then you prototype it. Then you, as I said, you prototype and you connect it to all the possible scenarios that happens. You complete the user journey map. You give them all the user flows that are possible to give them. Right. This happens in a lot of software. It can happen in Figma, as I just showed you, but this can also happen in great software like Protopie, InVision, Framer, great software. A lot of industry uses different softwares. It depends on different companies. It doesn't matter which software you use. Prototype should be right. Now the next step, when you have the prototype, you go to usability testing. The tools that I've mentioned, like Crazy Egg and Optimizely, they are good, but there are more tools like UX Tweak, and a lot of time we don't even use tools. We just go to a cafe, we give them some tasks, they do some scenarios, and we get them feedback. We have a note taker who takes the notes of their expressions, their thinking out loud method, and we get those feedbacks. Then we evaluate that, categorize that, and when we get that down into particular buckets, and then we kind of fill that up into according to priority, right? Now, why do testing is so important? Testing is so important because without testing uh, you won't be able to build the right product for the customer. Why I'm going to say this? I'm going to say this because building the right product for the customer, uh, in the method of design, in the process of design, is very important. Because if you don't build the right product, and when you ship it out, uh, by developing it, uh, and the change when the change when then the feedback comes and you have to change the whole product, that hurts a lot, that costs a lot of money, that not cost effective, and it hurts a lot because you have to do it everything again. So when you have the prototype, you have to test it out with the user so that you get a validation from the user that whatever you have designed is working right. Whatever you have designed is has to be the solution, right? Is the solution, and then you basically go to the development phase. After development phase, there QA happens, which is again not a part of this. There's a QA analytic, QA person, different QA person who does that part. But they basically kind of look at the Figma file and look at the development and see wherever are the changes, and they kind of tell the engineering team to fix that up, and they fix that up. Last thing that I just told about in the agenda, right? I wanted to talk about is product analytics. I'm gonna link down. One second. How do I do it? Uh, yeah, this is it, right? No, this is not it. Okay, so this is basically a data-driven, basically understanding how UX analytics for data-driven product design happens. And I want you guys to read it because just to give you a brief, product analytics is kind of understanding when the product is live, how a user is particularly performing the whole product, performing actions on the whole product. In product analytics, you can get recording of the sessions, you can get you can get the data of those sessions, wherever the clicks have been. You can get heat maps for those sessions. But just to let you know, this is something that comes like, yes, product designer can do it and they should do it. But as a product manager, who is the manager of the whole product, looks over these things. But I'm still kind of referring you out because this is something that you guys should definitely see. Uh, because nowadays the trend is happening that company want to save money and they want to hire a person who knows analytics, who is a product manager as well as designer, because that's a good thing to have. I would say even if you get hired as a product designer, that's okay. But having both of these skills are very, very important nowadays. Because if you know that how a user is behaving on your product, that's like a cherry on the cake. You can design the product in the best manner possible. So I'm gonna push it down in this chat. Uh, some of Ishita, I think you can kind of forward it up in the YouTube chat. Uh,
Sure, sir.
okay. Okay. So basically, this is an article that I will say everyone should read up. This basically tells you about how data-driven analytics can help you design a better product. Again, as I said, it can be button related, it can be different things related, but this is something that is very important nowadays, which you guys should look on. Actually, this is everything that I wanted to say. There are definitely some points that I still want to cover up. But if you guys have any questions, you can jump it out in the YouTube chat. I have YouTube open here. I can see those up. But yeah, till then, I'm just going to cover up few other points here. Yeah. So some points that were mentioned were that a product designer, uh, engineering and product design, how does that happen? As I told, everything that a product designer does is connected to engineering. They have to develop it, they have to do the animation, they have to build that prototype into a real life product, right, which people uses. So this is something that is very important. And as an engineer, you would be able to do it much nicely. Why? Because you know how that coding works, you know what is possible in which coding language. You will be easily driven into that particular platform, and you will be easily able to kind of guide the engineer that this is what you were thinking, this is something that you think is possible, this is something that you think is not possible, right? We already discussed about product analytics. I gave you an article, you guys can definitely refer to it. One thing that I always already talked about is how what the responsibilities and what a product designer does in the industry. They basically design a product, they give it to development, and they develop it. Right? I told you about what is UX. The one thing that I didn't told you about is what is exactly the core value of a product designer. Right? You heard a lot of things that we design things, we do things, we do X, Y, Z. But the one core value of a product designer is problem solving. Right? What do you do at the end? You solve a problem, right? You solve a problem for the user. You give them a product to by solving a problem in the best manner. There are some resources that I want to recommend for you guys to look over. One is obviously YouTube. You guys can refer YouTube anytime. You should be able to access these things easily. Like you could just write how to do product design. Let me just show you. If you just write, as I told you about Figma, right? You can use Figma. You can see how to do product design, right? I don't think that's the right language, but how to get started. There are thousands of videos which will help you out to get into product design. But the one thing that you should know, what's the right path to take, right? Because that's very important nowadays. There's second thing, if you are interested in product analytics and product management, there's a community called the Product Folks, which you guys, which I will recommend you guys very heavily. They're very good. It's for free. They do sessions. They have some other things as well, but this is something that I will recommend you guys. And as I told you, as a product designer, you have to do UI and UX as well, right? So at GrowthSchool, we have some courses in UI and UX, and if you can do a workshop, if you think that this is something that you are interested in, you can definitely go forward with it. One more thing that I want to tell you about, sometime big company, not a startups might also have this, but I haven't seen that. But in big companies like Google, Amazon, and as I said, big scale startups as well. Product designer might not do UI as well. You might not have to know UI. Just knowing how to do research, how to do testing, how to having the right customer map, customer journey map, user flow, and everything would be the right thing to do. It would be the right thing to know, right? And that might be enough for you to get hired. But again, if you know UI, that's a cherry on the cake. Skills, as I said, these are the important skills. You should know about design system. You should know about Figma. You should know research. You should know prototyping. Prototyping is very important because you are the only one who has to design the prototype and develop it, right? Earning. So basically, earning is very important for a lot of people. That's why I just wanted to point it out that nowadays a fresher product designer can easily. This is an average package that you can easily get up to 8 to 15. One thing I think is because Nowadays designers are very high in demand, uh, and because as I said, they are saving companies a lot of cost, right? So they are very high in demand, and it's good to have. One great example before coming to the questions. If you guys have any, as I said, I'm open to chat. You guys can pull it up in the chat, and I will bring that up because that's the last point I'm going to cover it up. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is example. So there's a person called Sandeep Paul, right? This person is basically someone. If you remember, there's a. I don't know if you guys know what is multi-plug. Multi-plug is basically you pull it in a plug and you can kind of have a multiple charging ports. And there is a thing called there's a multi-plug that is angular. If you see flat on the surface, curved down and curved up. You know who designed it? Sandeep Paul, and he's a product designer. Why? Because he felt that this is something that he needed to solve. Yes, product design can be done in hardware as well, but in hardware, you knowing 3D design is a very important to have. Not say compulsory, but very important to have. But I just wanted to tell you about this is a very common thing that we see nowadays, and one of the product designers in our industry made it, and that's something that I wanted to tell you guys about. So, guys, I'm open to question. Ishita, if you have any question, just let me know. I'm open to them.
Undoubtedly, sir. This was incredibly insightful session for the audience, and almost all of the questions are answered by this session. But still, we've got some other questions from the audience. So, sir, one of the question is, please share with our audience what inspired you to get into product design.
Okay. Uh, Basically, as I said, it's a big long journey that has happened through a lot of years. But the one thing that I would say, engineering, I always loved coding, and I think a lot of you guys also love coding. Coding is something that I loved, but I was not happy doing it. It was way too hectic for me. And I loved being creative. I loved designing things. I loved building things. So I understood that this product design, UX design, UI design is a space where I can kind of use my coding skills to kind of develop the right product, solve problems, and bring my creativeness into it. And I think a lot of you guys would be able to relate this, that being creative and being tech savvy is the best skill to have nowadays. You can get into UI, you can get into product design, you can get into product management. Uh, you can kind of explore that space because which has not been explored for a long while now, and it's kind of booming up right now. And I would really highly suggest that if it's something that comes up, you guys should definitely explore it. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. One of the question was, how is product design different from product management?
Yes. So product design is more related to designing that particular product. The product manager focuses on the product life cycle. That is basically, I would say, that is basically that the product roadmap, I would say. So let's assume we want to develop a XYZ product. Sorry, the product manager will lay down the roadmap and how it will be developed, how different features will be developed, and the maximum engagement a product manager has to do with both design and the engineering. It's kind of the overhead of both of these. Overhead, I wouldn't say, but it's kind of the bridge between both of these things, which helps them kind of coordinate better, which helps them kind of being on the right path, what they're doing, being on the deadlines, seeing that which feature has to be prioritized, which feature doesn't has to be prioritized. For example, we build a Canva, right? But now we are figuring out that should we give the feature of presenting a screen first, or should we give a feature of developing Instagram carousels, right? Which feature has to be prioritized? That's a product manager's job to decide which feature has to be product prioritized, because they are very much aligned with the scope of the whole company business, and they understand uh, which feature will bring the most revenue possible. Basically.
Yes. So, sir, how has your journey been so far with product design?
Yeah, so product design, I would say I started as a kind of a video editor come filmmaker in the very, very starting, did some graphic design as well, but slowly, steadily, I kind of explored marketing, coding, then figured out that graphic design and UI is kind of my calling. I did a lot of that, did great internships, kind of got good mentors at the very start itself. Uh, and the one of my the head of product and design at Growth School was my mentor for a very long back. Even when I just joined Growth School, he was the one who kind of pushed me, or kind of the bridge between of me joining Growth School. So the journey has been very ups and downs. You will start with doing some UI stuff, learning Figma, designing UIs. Then eventually we'll get to know that research is very important. You will start learning, reading articles about research. Then eventually you will get into understanding that you need to have a broader scope. Then knowing both of these things, having more scope, you understand product design is something that I can do. Uh, and then you kind of focus on product design. But nowadays, I'm kind of focusing on product analytics because I know being a product manager and designer is a good skill to have, and it's the best kind of format that you can go into. That's what I'm trying to figure out, that how product analytics can be more involved in product design, and how it can make help us make greater products. So yeah, that's the path I'm trying to follow, which I will, as I said, I will highly suggest others to follow as well. Like product analytics are way too important to build a better product. Uh, so yeah,
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your knowledge and committing to the session.
yep. Thank you so much, Ishita. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for having me here. Uh,
Yeah, so GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith feels immensely excited to share that on 7th March we will be conducting our fourth session for the week of prep, in which we will discuss Android development. So I would request all the Android enthusiasts to join tomorrow's session. All the links for the social handles have been provided in the description below. Do connect with us there. Thank you so much everyone for joining us today, and we wish to see the same zeal and enthusiasm for the upcoming speaker sessions as well. Thank you everyone. See you there. Happy coding.